Something inside you already knows. That subtle hum in your chest, that sense of anticipation you can't quite explain, it isn't random. It's the signal before the shift. Not the loud trumpet blasts of a life crisis. Not the dramatic breaking of everything at once. No, this is quieter, subtler. A whisper in your nervous system, a flicker at the edge of your awareness. And you're noticing it now because your inner frequency has started to pull you into alignment with a new reality. You've brushed against this moment before those edges of possibility when you felt like something big was coming, only to retreat into what was safe, what was known. Most people do exactly that. They sense the opening, then slam the door shut because the unknown terrifies them more than their familiar pain. But you've stayed here, you've lingered in the doorway, and that alone tells the story you are ready for a threshold few dare to cross. This signal doesn't look impressive on the surface. It looks like restlessness. It feels like exhaustion with what used to be enough. Old comforts suddenly taste like ash. Familiar routines lose their pull. Your body begins rejecting what your soul has already outgrown. That is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough in disguise. The discomfort is confirmation that you are no longer compatible with your old frequency. Look at the signs more closely. Repeating numbers that keep flashing on clocks and receipts. A song lyric lining up perfectly with the thought you just had. A stranger dropping a sentence that answers a question you never voiced. These aren't coincidences, they are calibrations. Life rearranging itself around the vibration you now carry. You are broadcasting a clearer signal, and reality is beginning to answer it. Pause, feel it in your body. That tingling in your skin, that deep recognition in your gut. Those are not tricks of the imagination. They are evidence of a frequency shift. They are your nervous system recalibrating to handle a higher voltage. If you ignore them, they don't go away. They just grow louder until you're forced to notice. But if you honor them, if you treat them as real, the pace of your transition accelerates. Here's what most people miss. The signal does not come with proof. It arrives empty-handed. No guarantees, no signed contract, no detailed map, just a pull, just a knowing. And here lies the test. Will you trust it before it makes sense? Will you walk with the signal when nothing in your environment validates it yet? That trust is what separates the few who break through from the many who stay trapped in cycles they secretly despise. The quiet signal is not trying to convince your mind. It is bypassing it, because your mind will always argue. It will say, you're imagining this, you're overthinking, nothing's happening, but your body knows. Your spirit knows. That gentle current carrying you forward is more reliable than your doubt. The real question is whether you'll stop discrediting your own inner evidence. So right now, let yourself acknowledge it. The signal is real. The synchronicities are not chance. The exhaustion is not weakness. The restlessness is not a flaw. These are the birth pangs of a reality that hasn't fully arrived yet, but is already on its way. You've been chosen to feel this shift early, to sense it before others catch on, because you have the courage to walk first. And when you walk, you won't just cross your own threshold, you'll leave a path for others to follow. This is the beginning. The faint hum in your chest is the drumbeat of a new timeline. Don't mute it. Don't rationalize it away. This is your invitation to trust the signal before the world catches up. Think back to the hardest nights of your life, the ones that seemed endless, where the weight on your chest felt unbearable, the heartbreak that split your spirit wide open, the financial crash that stripped away security, the illness that forced you to face your own fragility. In those moments, you probably thought you were being punished, or abandoned, or simply unlucky. But what if those very experiences were not curses, but the forge? What if pressure wasn't the enemy, but the sculptor pressure has always been the hidden curriculum of transformation. Diamonds are only created in the dark, beneath miles of earth, under unimaginable weight and heat. Without pressure, carbon is just carbon, ordinary, unnoticed, unremarkable. But with pressure, it becomes something unbreakable, something that refracts light into brilliance. That's you. Every betrayal, every setback, every season of silence has been shaping you into a vessel capable of holding a greater light than you could before. Most people avoid pressure. They run from challenge. They numb the pain, distract themselves with comfort, or settle for lives that never stretch them. And because of that, their potential remains locked inside, untested, unshaped. You, on the other hand, were chosen for intensity. Life has pushed you through tunnels others would never survive, not because you were cursed, but because you were being conditioned to carry something bigger than convenience. Pause, look at your own scars, the friendships that crumbled, the doors that slammed in your face, the seasons where prayers seemed to bounce off the ceiling. These were not wasted years. Each one stretched your resilience, strengthened your inner spine, sharpened your discernment. Can you see it now? Without those losses, you wouldn't have the depth you carry today. Without the collapse, you wouldn't know how to rebuild. Without the silence, you wouldn't recognize the sound of your own true voice. Here's the paradox: the very struggles you begged to escape became the training ground for the life you're about to step into. You needed to know emptiness so you could handle abundance without worshiping it. You needed to know rejection so you could stand in your authenticity without shrinking. You needed to know despair so you could recognize hope as more than a word. It became your lifeline. Remember, this pressure is not proof that you are weak. It's proof that you are chosen to endure what others cannot. The trials that almost broke you were not random. They were precision tools shaping your character, chiseling away illusions, sanding down arrogance, preparing you for a reality that demands depth, not surface strength. Think of it like this: if you had received everything you once begged for 5 years ago, would you have been ready? Probably not. You would have wasted it, sabotaged it, or collapsed under its weight. But the pressure of delay built endurance. The furnace of disappointment created humility. The loneliness taught you how to sit with yourself until you could hear your own spirit whisper. This is why you were designed for pressure. Because pressure produces more than success. It produces foundation. It rewires your nervous system to hold more energy without shattering. It gives you the quiet confidence that you can survive storms and still rise. It refines you into someone who doesn't just talk about resilience, you embody it. So when you remember the pressure, don't see it as wasted pain. See it as the architect of your strength. Every time you thought you were breaking, you were being reshaped. Every time you thought life was against you, it was actually preparing you. That's why you can stand where others fall. That's why your future won't collapse the moment weight presses down. It already tried, and you endured. Your scars are not evidence of defeat. They are the proof that you can withstand what most can't. They are reminders that you don't just survive pressure, you transform because of it. And now, because you've been refined, you're ready for a reality that requires not fragile comfort, but unshakable brilliance. Every time you stand on the threshold of something new, a familiar voice rises inside. You know it well. It whispers warnings, sometimes shouts them. Stay small, stay safe, don't risk it. What if you fail? That voice has been with you for years, shaping your choices in ways you didn't always notice. It's not evil. It's not your enemy. It's your ego, an old guardian built from the rules of your past wounds. When you were younger, the ego learned its lessons quickly. Maybe you stood out and were mocked. Maybe you dreamed too boldly and were told to be realistic. Maybe you trusted someone and were betrayed. Each time, the ego wrote a new rule to keep you safe. Blend in. Lower your voice. Don't try again. Expect less. Those rules became a safety script, a set of invisible instructions telling you how to avoid pain. But here's the paradox: what once protected you now imprisons you. The same walls that kept out danger are now blocking opportunity. The same caution that once prevented the heartbreak now prevents breakthrough. The ego clings to outdated maps, insisting that the unknown is lethal, when in truth, the unknown is where your freedom waits. Pause. Notice how resistance shows up in you. Sometimes it's disguised as logic. This doesn't make sense yet. Wait until conditions are perfect. Sometimes it shows up as doubt. What if this is just luck? What if I'm imagining the signs? And sometimes it arrives as fear masked as wisdom. Other people failed at this. Who do you think you are? Every one of those lines comes from the safety script, not your true self. Here's what most misdoubt doesn't appear when you're going in circles. It shows up when you're about to break through. If you were truly stuck, the ego would stay quiet. It wouldn't need to protect you. Resistance only rises when you've stepped close enough to the threshold that transformation becomes possible. That means the fear isn't proof you're wrong. It's proof you're close. So how do you meet this voice without letting it run your life? You don't silence it. You don't fight it. You acknowledge it. Try this ritual when the ego says, "Stay safe." Pause and respond not with anger, but with gratitude. Say inwardly, "Thank you for protecting me when I was young. But I'm not that child anymore. I'm stronger now. I can handle this." By naming the script and speaking back, you strip it of its power. This is where courage comes in, not the Hollywood kind of courage, not charging into battle. True courage is quieter. It's the decision to trust your inner signal, even when the ego screams no. It's the daily act of moving forward with the fear still present, refusing to let it steer. Think of the ego like an old smoke alarm that goes off whenever you cook something new. It doesn't mean the house is burning down. It means the system hasn't updated to the present reality. You can acknowledge the sound without abandoning the meal. You can keep cooking, keep creating, keep moving. Your safety script will keep showing up at every level. That's natural, but now you know how to read it. It's not a prophecy of doom. It's simply the nervous system announcing, "We've never been here before." And isn't that the point? Breakthrough means entering territory you've never walked. Resistance doesn't mean stop, it means you're exactly where you need to be. So the next time doubt rises, don't collapse into it. Recognize it as the marker that you're stepping closer to the life you've been preparing for. Thank the script for trying. Then turn the page and write a new one. Breakthrough doesn't always come with fireworks. More often, it starts with something deceptively simple, the act of unclenching. Think about how much tension you carry, shoulders tight, jaw locked, mind racing. Your body holds the history of everything you've endured. And without realizing it, you grip that weight as if your survival depends on it. But the shift you're stepping into requires space. And to create space, you must practice letting go. Not in theory, but in small daily acts. Here's the truth: you can't just will yourself into a new reality. You can't force your way into alignment. What you can do is train your nervous system to stop bracing for impact and start flowing with trust. That's where micro practices come in. They're not grand rituals. They're subtle adjustments, tiny choices that signal to your whole being, it's safe to release now. I can hold something new. Let's start with the first, the 1-minute breath anchor. Close your eyes and inhale slowly through your nose, counting to 4. Hold for a moment. Then exhale through your mouth for 6. Feel your shoulders drop. your chest loosen, your belly soften. Just 1 minute of this, repeated throughout the day, interrupts the autopilot of stress. It tells your body, I'm not in danger anymore. I'm available for expansion. The second is the 2-question journal. Each morning or evening, write down 2 things. What am I ready to release today? What am I ready to receive today? Don't overthink. 1 word is enough. Maybe you release fear. Maybe you receive clarity. These words act as energetic signposts, training your awareness to orient toward growth instead of clinging to what's familiar. The third is the micro-reset ritual. Whenever you feel your chest tighten or your thoughts spiral, pause and place 1 hand on your heart, 1 on your belly. Whisper to yourself, I am safe. I am shifting. I don't need to carry this anymore. You'll be surprised how quickly this small act changes your state. It pulls you out of survival and into coherence. Pause, notice what these practices have in common. None of them require hours of meditation or dramatic life changes. They are portable, practical, woven into the fabric of your day. That's because real transformation isn't about what you do once. It's about what you repeat until your nervous system trusts it. Breakthrough isn't only spiritual, it's physiological. Your body has to be taught, gently, that it no longer needs to live clenched against the world. And here's why this matters if you don't train yourself to release in small ways. The bigger releases, the relationships, the jobs, the versions of yourself will feel unbearable. Micro practices prepare you for macro shifts. They teach you to let go in safe increments, so that when the time comes to walk away from what no longer fits, you have the muscle memory of release. Think of it like tuning an instrument. Every small adjustment brings you closer to harmony, breath by breath, word by word, gesture by gesture. You're calibrating your frequency to hold a higher vibration without collapsing under it. These are not just self-care routines. They're the daily proof that you are no longer ruled by the safety script. They're signals to the field around you. I am ready. I am available. I am aligning with something greater. And over time, those small unclenchings open the door to the massive breakthroughs that once felt impossible. So start now. Take 1 breath, write 1 word, place 1 hand on your heart. That single unclenching is the seed of the reality you've been waiting for. Have you ever noticed how a thought becomes heavier the moment you pay attention to it? How an idea seems to grow legs and walk toward reality as soon as you stop dismissing it? That's not just psychology, it's quantum law at work. In physics, they call it the observer effect. The act of noticing changes the outcome. And in your life, the same principle applies. The moment you truly observe your own breakthrough, see it, name it, believe it, you accelerate its arrival. Here's the hidden truth: most people never step into their next level because they refuse to acknowledge what's already happening. They treat synchronicities as random, treat inner knowing as just a feeling, treat their readiness as wishful thinking. But when you deny your awareness, you don't just pause the process, you collapse it back into potential. You send the signal, not yet. I don't trust this. And the field responds accordingly. Pause, feel into this. Right now, there are infinite versions of your life branching out before you. In one, you keep settling. In another, you awaken but hesitate. In yet another, you step forward, align with courage, and create a reality unrecognizable compared to your past. All of these paths exist simultaneously as potential. Which one becomes actual depends on what you observe, what you embody, what you claim as real. That's why awareness is not passive, it's participatory. To notice the shift is to energize it. To dismiss it is to starve it. Every time you say out loud, I feel something changing, You are not just narrating, you're shaping. You're collapsing possibility into form. Here's a practice. Choose one area of your life where you sense the shift stirring. Maybe it's your relationships, maybe your career, maybe your own self-perception. Now pause. Close your eyes. Picture two diverging paths, one where you keep repeating the old cycle, one where you trust the signal and step forward. Hold both for a moment, then consciously turn your awareness toward the second path. Whisper to yourself, "This is the one I choose." That act of observing is not symbolic, it's quantum. You just collapse the wave of possibility into the line of reality. Notice how different this feels from forcing an outcome. Forcing comes from desperation, I need this to happen. Observation comes from alignment. I see what's already forming, and I agree with it. That agreement is enough to shift probabilities in your favor. Most people think miracles happen in grand flashes, but the real miracle is awareness itself. A farmer doesn't make a seed grow by shouting at it. The seed grows because the farmer pays attention, waters it, creates space for it. Your awareness works the same way. The moment you stop treating your inner signals as noise, you start cultivating them as truth. Remember, you don't need to know every step ahead. You don't need proof on paper. You just need the courage to observe your own expansion without apologizing for it. Each time you do, you're collapsing possibility into breakthrough. You're turning maybe someday into happening now. So here's the invitation: pause at least once a day and catch yourself in the act of awakening. Notice the synchronicity. Acknowledge the inner nudge. Say to yourself, I see this, I claim this. This is real. With every observation, you carve your path through the infinite. You stop being a passive passenger of chance and start co-directing the reality that has been waiting for you. This is not imagination, it's activation. Awareness is the most powerful tool you own. Use it and watch possibility become your lived experience. As your frequency shifts, something peculiar begins to happen. People, situations, and resources start reorganizing themselves around you. At first, it feels uncanny. Strangers show up who speak the very words you needed to hear. Opportunities appear without the usual struggle, and just as quickly, others who once felt central to your life begin to fall away. This isn't coincidence, it's the strange attractor effect in motion. In quantum systems, a strange attractor is a pattern that pulls chaos into order, shaping seemingly random movements into a coherent flow. Spiritually, you become that pattern when you align with your truth. Your energy stops scattering and starts broadcasting a consistent signal. And that signal doesn't just shift your own life, it draws others into its field. People begin orbiting you, sensing a clarity they can't explain but want to be near. Pause, look back. Haven't you already seen this? The friend who called right after you made a bold decision, not knowing you needed encouragement. The mentor who appeared at the exact moment you were ready to grow. The sudden invitation that unlocked a door you'd been knocking on for years. These alignments are not luck. They are the universe recalibrating its network around your coherence. But here's the other side: not everyone welcomes your new frequency. Some will resist it fiercely. They've built their comfort around the version of you that stayed small, predictable, and manageable. When you rise, their stability feels threatened. They may criticize, mock, or suddenly distance themselves. It's tempting to see this as betrayal, but it's simply physics. Your new vibration no longer resonates with their old one. This is why many on the breakthrough path feel both surrounded and isolated at once. New allies emerge, but old ties unravel. It can sting, but it's necessary. A radio cannot tune to two frequencies at the same time. You can't cling to relationships that vibrate at scarcity and still expect abundance to flow. The strange attractor effect demands honesty: who is orbiting you now and who is fading from your field. Here's the key: don't demonize the ones who resist. Their discomfort isn't about your worth, it's about their fear. Your growth is a mirror showing them possibilities they're not ready to face. Instead of clinging or convincing, release them with compassion. By doing so, you make space for connections that nourish your expansion rather than choke it. And on the flip side, honor the new alliances that feel almost too aligned to be real. The conversations that unlock ideas in you. The communities that celebrate, not question, your authenticity. These are the living proof that your signal is being received. They are the collaborators for your next chapter, drawn by the strange attractor effect of your coherence. Remember, the field doesn't lie. When your energy stabilizes, chaos around you begins to organize. Patterns emerge, allies gather, and old ties loosen. Don't fight the process. Trust that what falls away is clearing space for what must arrive. You are not just changing your own life, you are reshaping the web around you. The strange attractor effect is your reminder that breakthrough is never solitary. When you rise, the field rearranges, and in that rearrangement, a new world quietly begins to form. You've probably noticed it already. The moment you start stepping into a higher version of yourself, friction shows up, plans stall, technology glitches, someone questions your choices, an obstacle appears out of nowhere, and for a split second, you wonder, am I on the wrong path? But here's the truth. Friction isn't a warning sign that you're failing. It's confirmation you're shifting. Think about it: when a rocket leaves Earth, the atmosphere resists. Friction increases as it breaks free from gravity's grip. If the engineers misread that resistance as failure, no ship would ever leave the ground. In the same way, when you rise into new territory, the old frequency pushes back. It's not punishment, it's physics. Pause. Remember this phrase: resistance is data, not destiny. Every obstacle carries information. Instead of collapsing into discouragement, start asking, what is this friction showing me often? It reveals exactly where the upgrade is happening. The rude cashier isn't proof you're cursed. It's feedback on how your new energy unsettles old systems. The sudden delay isn't the universe rejecting you. It's an invitation to refine your patience, sharpen your focus, or redirect your approach. Here's a simple 3-step pattern for working with friction. First, notice. When resistance arises, don't ignore it or overreact. Just name it. This is friction. Second, name. Ask what kind of feedback it carries. Is it showing you an old wound still active, a relationship out of alignment, a skill you're being called to strengthen? Third, realign. Instead of quitting, adjust. Shift your posture, your expectation, your response. That small calibration is often enough to keep moving forward without abandoning the trajectory. Most people interpret friction as a closed door. They stop moving, declare it wasn't meant to be, and retreat to safety. But the truth is, friction usually arrives right before momentum locks in. It's the static before the signal clears, the turbulence before the plane levels out. If you quit when resistance peaks, you abandon the very process that was confirming your expansion. So the next time someone misunderstands you, when the opportunity stalls, when the progress feels slower than promised, remember, this is feedback, not failure. The universe isn't blocking you, it's strengthening your capacity to hold the very reality you're calling in. Think of it like lifting weights. The resistance is what builds the muscle. Without it, strength never develops. And the strength you're building now isn't just physical, it's spiritual resilience, emotional steadiness, energetic clarity. That's why friction feels uncomfortable. It's rewiring your whole system. Don't personalize the pushback. Don't waste energy asking, "Why me?" instead. Reframe it as evidence that you're in motion. Friction never shows up for the stagnant. It only greets the ones moving forward. So lean into it. Let resistance remind you you're on the right path. Treat every obstacle as a signal that you are stepping into new air, because you are, and the only way out is through. You've asked yourself this question more than once. Why is it taking so long? You've seen the sign, felt the shift, done the work, and still the breakthrough hasn't arrived in the way you imagined. But what if the wait isn't delay? What if it's calibration? Think of an orchestra before the concert begins. Every instrument must tune not because the performance is late, but because harmony requires precision. If one violin is off by a single note, the whole symphony suffers. Your life works the same way. The pauses you call delay are actually the universe tuning you, aligning relationships, rearranging resources, and preparing you to play in harmony with your next season. Pause, look back at your own story. Haven't you noticed how often things made sense only after the fact? That breakup that shattered you, years later revealed itself as the doorway to freedom. That job you lost forced you into skills you never would have learned otherwise. That wrong turn became the exact road that led you here. Timing has always been retroactive clarity. What felt like chaos then reveals itself as precision now. Here's the truth: if your breakthrough had come too soon, it would have crushed you. Like a seed forced open before its roots are deep enough, you would have collapsed under blessings you weren't ready to hold. Calibration isn't punishment, it's protection. It's the universe saying, wait until your roots can hold to the fruit. Wait until your inner foundation matches your outer opportunity. This is why patience is not passive. It's not just waiting with folded arms, it's active trust. It's using the in-between time to sharpen your discernment, deepen your practices, and fortify your resilience. Every not yet is an invitation to keep preparing, keep aligning, keep expanding your capacity. Think of timing like a lock and key. If you try to force the key too early, it won't turn, but when the tumblers align, click, the door swings open with almost no effort. That's how breakthrough feels when calibration is complete. Suddenly, what was impossible last year becomes effortless. Decisions that once paralyzed you now flow with clarity. Connections that once felt out of reach appear right on schedule. And here's the paradox. The more you stop fighting time, the faster it moves. Anxiety slows everything down because it tells the field, I don't believe I'm ready. Trust accelerates everything because it signals, I accept the calibration. I know alignment is working even when I can't see it. So when you catch yourself saying, I'm behind, I've missed it, I'm late, stop. You are not late. You are right on time. The delay was never a denial. It was a recalibration, ensuring you don't just arrive, but arrive ready. Hold this: timing isn't an obstacle to your breakthrough. It is the very architecture of it. Every pause has purpose. Every detour has design. And one day soon, you'll look back and realize the wait wasn't wasted. It was the secret ingredient that made you unshakable. Breakthrough is not just about what you gain. It's about who you become once you hold it. Too often, people imagine that stepping into their next level is about abundance, freedom, or recognition. And while those may come, they are not the true measure. The real test of breakthrough is how you carry the responsibility that comes with it. When your frequency rises, you don't just change your own life, you affect the entire field around you. Your words land differently. Your choices ripple wider. Your very presence becomes a signal others can't ignore. This is quantum responsibility. The awareness that your alignment isn't private, it's participatory. What you embody shapes more than your personal reality. It contributes to the collective. Pause, consider this. Every time you stand in your truth, instead of shrinking, someone else nearby finds permission to do the same. Every time you choose compassion instead of bitterness, it shifts the emotional climate of your circle. Every time you honor integrity over shortcuts, you become a stabilizer in a world addicted to shortcuts. That's not theory, it's physics. Coherent frequencies pull scattered ones into order. When you're aligned, you unconsciously lead. And this is why breakthrough is not a prize, it's an assignment. The universe doesn't give you greater clarity just so you can hoard it. It entrusts you with influence so you can steward it. That stewardship doesn't mean becoming a preacher, a guru, or a public figure. It simply means living so authentically that your choices ripple outward as medicine. Service is not always loud, it can be as quiet as a kind word, a healed boundary, a moment of listening when someone feels invisible. Here's the paradox: the more responsibility you accept, the more support you receive. When you align with service, doors open you could never pry open with ambition alone. Why? Because you're no longer moving just for yourself. You're carrying a frequency the world needs, and the universe amplifies what serves the whole. But let's be honest, this responsibility can feel heavy. You'll be tempted to hide, to say, "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted my life to feel better." Yet deep down, you know this isn't just about you. Your healing heals your lineage. Your courage writes blueprints for those who come after. Your breakthrough stabilizes others in ways you may never fully see. That's the weight and the wonder of this assignment. So how do you carry quantum responsibility without collapsing under it? You anchor in daily practices of humility. You remind yourself, this isn't about perfection, it's about coherence. You catch yourself when ego whispers, "This makes me superior," and you return to service, "This makes me available." You stop seeing your growth as a private escape and start seeing it as collective contribution. Remember, responsibility in the quantum field is not about doing more, it's about being more true. Your integrity is the frequency. Your authenticity is the signal. And when you hold those consistently, the field responds not just for you, but for everyone connected to you. This is the sacred weight of breakthrough. It's not just your reward, it's your calling. And once you accept that, your life shifts from being about survival to being about service. Not forced service, not performance, but natural, overflowing, contagious service, because authenticity always gives more than it takes. Up until now, you've been sensing, preparing, recalibrating. You've felt the signals, endured the pressure, wrestled with doubt, practiced release, observed your own awareness, and carried the responsibility of alignment. But breakthrough is not just a theory. It isn't only a frequency. It asks for embodiment, and embodiment begins with a leap, not a reckless leap into anything, not the pressure of proving yourself. This leap is different. It's the first aligned step you take when you trust the shift more than you trust your fear. And that step doesn't have to be massive, it just has to be real. Pause and think, what is one action you've been avoiding because the ego whispered not yet? Maybe it's the conversation you know you need to have. Maybe it's closing the door on something that's been draining you for years. Maybe it's finally giving life to the idea that has sat in your notebook for far too long. The leap doesn't demand spectacle, it demands honesty. Here's why this matters. Until you take action, your energy remains potential. The signal keeps buzzing, the synchronicities keep circling, but nothing locks in. Action is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It tells the field, I'm not just feeling the shift, I'm living it. That declaration changes everything. Think of it like electricity. Wires can carry charge all day, but until you flip the switch, the light stays off. Your first aligned leap is that switch. Suddenly, what was theory becomes illumination, and with that light, the path ahead begins to reveal itself. Don't confuse aligned leaps with grand leaps. The alignment is the key. A single word spoken in truth can shift more than 100 actions taken in fear. A single yes to what resonates, or no to what drains, can collapse years of waiting into days of momentum. The breakthrough accelerates not because you forced it, but because you finally matched it. So here is your invitation today, not tomorrow. Take one aligned leap. It could be small enough to fit into 10 minutes, but powerful enough to reroute your trajectory. Send the message, release the item, sign up, step away, step forward. Whatever it is, let it be born from coherence, not pressure. And when you do, seal it with a signature. Choose a single word: courage, freedom, truth, light, and carry it like a flame in your chest. Let that word become the energetic stamp of your leap, the marker that you chose movement over hesitation. This is how breakthrough begins, not with applause, not with proof, but with the quiet courage to take one aligned step. And when you do, you'll look back and realize this wasn't just the start of a new chapter. It was the moment you became the author. Take a breath, let it settle in. You've walked through the signals, the pressure, the resistance, the calibration. You've seen how each part of your journey has been shaping you, refining you, preparing you not just for a better life, but for a truer one. And now, here you stand at the edge of the threshold, not with frantic striving, but with steady awareness. This isn't about chasing some far-off destiny. It's about realizing that the breakthrough has already begun. Every time you honored the quiet signal, every time you endured the pressure, every time you released what no longer fit you, we're already stepping into it. The leap is not coming later, it's happening now. One choice, one breath, one aligned act at a time. And here's the part you must carry with you. You are not alone in this. Others are feeling it too, scattered across the world, sensing the same pull, facing the same friction. Together, you form a rising wave, a living proof that consciousness itself is evolving. When you rise, you give permission for others to rise. When you speak truth, you open space for others to do the same. Your personal breakthrough is already service. It ripples farther than you know. So let yourself rest in this awareness. You are right on time. Not late, not behind, not forgotten. Everything has unfolded as it needed to, shaping you into someone who can hold the reality that is now arriving. There is no rush, no force, only alignment. As we close, choose your word. One word that captures the essence of what you're stepping into. It could be courage, freedom, light, trust. Whisper it to yourself. Write it down. Let it mark this moment as your declaration to the field, I am ready, and carry that readiness gently. Not as pressure, but as presence. Not as striving, but as surrender. Because your life is not about to flip it, already is flipping. The shift is in motion, and all that's left is for you to keep walking with the current instead of against it. Your breakthrough has already begun. Now live as if it's true.